And a little voice said to me, "You should do something." And I was like, you've got to be joking. I don't know anything about seniors. And I could never, get up and pretend I knew something. So the voice wouldn't go away. And on the third day, I finally decided to do a little research. And so fast forward, 6 months later, I had a certification, and I was doing my first workshop. And we did them all through the pandemic. We also, of course, we couldn't do them live, but we did them online when we could. And during that period, when I couldn't do the live workshops, I spent the time developing an incredible resource team of the most lovely, most capable people who specialize in working with seniors. And to my delight, as I was putting this team together, I found that there's lots of amazing and wonderful people out there to help you. The problem is they were all sitting in their desks, at their desks in their office. And unfortunately, when the crises happened, they didn't know it had happened. And so I just realized there was a huge disconnect here. And so I decided that what I needed to do was stand in the middle and make sure that the connections were made through education and introductions, so that when the crisis happens, because how many people know the crises will happen eventually, when it happens, that you will have some knowledge of what to do. So our mission at Seacoast Seniors is to educate, empower, and equip older adults and their families so they make knowledge-driven versus crisis-driven decisions when the crisis happens. Okay, did I make that clear? Okay. Our theme is helping us get our people's ducks in a row. And that's why we had that little 2-tier dish on the way in with all the ducks. So I'd like you each to go home with a duck today. And when you see your duck, I want you to think of me. Or remind your kids, give them my phone number. So God forbid the crisis happens, they'll know, at least call Nancy and Nancy can direct you. Okay? I would like to thank our sponsors. Our sponsors make it financially possible for us to continue to put these workshops on at absolutely no cost to you. And we have a brand new sponsor right now. Nathan, this is Nathan. Nathan is with Magnolia Primrose, and this is a beautiful 2-house property, and they cater to residents with dementia. So thank you, Nathan. Our sponsors will have materials in the back right corner of the room today, and they'll be back there if you want to ask them any specific questions. We have other sponsors here today. Sue Gibson, she's in the back right. Sue is with SLG Senior Care, and what she does is, if you're thinking about moving to a senior community, she will take you around at absolutely no cost to you and help you choose one that you might want to consider moving into. And then we have another sponsor here today, Regenesis 360. This is Chris Cucchiara. He's also a speaker today, and he will be here to answer any questions that you have. Did I miss any sponsors that are here today? Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys to sit down. I'll turn this awful light off for you. Whoops, that's the focus. Okay, it's this one. There we go. Okay. So So I've invited 3 trusted local experts to help us explore the essential steps that we can take, not only to make life easier, but easier for our families after we're gone, but also to ease our own minds and improve the quality of our lives today. In a few minutes, we are going to ask the speakers to introduce themselves briefly. And then I'll ask them some questions which we have prepared in advance. After that, we'll have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, write them down because we will not take questions until the speakers are through speaking. On your table, you have a page with notes. So obviously you could take some notes. And then underneath, you have a feedback form. Did everybody get a learning card when they came in? If they haven't, okay, so everyone has a learning card. The learning cards are connected to the feedback form if you would like to participate in our little game. We love you to fill out the feedback forms because it helps us put on a better series of workshops for you. And if you do turn in a feedback form, you get a little hole punch on your learning card, and after 10 holes, you get a $10 Panera card. Now, is that totally worth it? Yeah. Okay, all right. The restrooms are out the door to the right, and there's coffee and goodies in the back. Okay. Well, welcome back to The Perfect Gift. I'm so glad you're here today. We're also joined by 3 of our trusted education partners who are going to help us explore how to create a truly meaningful gift, one that brings clarity, peace of mind to others and to ourselves. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce these wonderful professionals who have donated their time today because they understand that you need to get this information, and we want you to age gracefully, not from crises to crises. So on the first, we have Melissa. Raise your hand if you don't mind. This is Melissa LaPena from Slow Hospice. Then we have Chloe Feingold, a financial planner from Edward Jones. And then we have Chris Cucchiara, who's a fitness expert from Regenesis 360. So I will ask each of them to share a bit about who they are and the important work they do. So I'll turn it over to them now. Melissa, would you give us a brief introduction and tell us what you do?
Yeah, definitely. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here today. So my name is Melissa LaPena, and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for Hospice Slow County. Hospice Slow County is a non-medical volunteer hospice and community grief center. And so that might be a little bit different from the idea of hospice that you know of, which is typically focused on medical needs. I'll go into in a little bit more detail later, but essentially as a non-medical volunteer hospice, we're focused on the practical care and emotional support for people.
Thank you, Melissa. Chloe.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chloe Feingold, and as Nancy mentioned, I'm a financial advisor at Edward Jones. I think the most compelling reason that I'm here, obviously, Nancy's a wonderful person, and I love being here for you guys, but the bigger thing is my grandma and my family has been really severely affected by Alzheimer's and dementia, and so it was super important to me to support this community. I often joke there's 3 groups of people I work with: friends, family, and people I like. It's super important that you like me and I like you, or this is going to be a bad time. Young people and new investors, and what this looks like in this kind of setting is helping with beneficiaries and working with people who will be working with you as on your financial journey as you age. And then I do a lot of business and organizational finance for for-profit and nonprofit organizations. So that's a little about me.
Thank you, Chloe. Chris.
Well, good morning, Coach Chris Cucchiara. I've been in the health and wellness business now for about 45 years and have had various businesses, and my niche now is really working with populations of 50 to 90-year-old clientele that I feel is very underserved. And being in the middle of the baby boom generation myself, I really understand this market. And it's just so gratifying to take that population and help them get stronger and stronger and stronger. We're reversing osteoporosis. It's never too late to start exercising. And it's just amazing to see how that changes an entire family when they see their loved ones start to have their quality of life back when they lose it. So those that have lost it, we help them get them back. And those that haven't, we make sure they never lose it. And one thing, I know you guys are going to learn a lot from us today, but I see a room full of wisdom here. I like to say, instead of aging and older, I like to replace that with wisdom. So we're not aging, we're all gaining wisdom, and we're going to learn a lot from you guys today too.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, Melissa, I'm going to ask you to stand because I'm going to ask you some questions and I want to make sure everybody can see you. Okay. Many people think that hospice means the end. Who thinks that? Okay. Well, can you clarify what hospice really is and when it's appropriate?
Yeah, definitely. So hospice, does have this misunderstanding that it is the end. But death is natural. It is part of the experience of being human and living. And our bodies are not meant to last forever. That said, hospice becomes appropriate when a person's illness is progressing and their treatments, their curative treatments, are no longer being effective and producing meaningful results, or when the burden of those treatments begins to outweigh those benefits. Medically, a person is eligible for hospice when two physicians they're attending, and they're either the medical director or the hospice doctor, determines that that the patient has a life expectancy of 6 months or less, assuming that the illness continues in its usual course. And while a terminal diagnosis is never easy to accept, when a person is eligible and chooses to go on to medical hospice, it will mean that they're going to stop their curative treatments, but it does not mean they're going to stop receiving care. Some people feel like the stopping of receiving the curative treatment is giving up. But I really see that as a decision of choosing to take advantage of the time that's available. When that decision is made before it's too late, before the crisis, before the exhaustion really takes over, many people do find that choice very empowering, and it gives them a chance to redefine what hope is. Instead of hoping for, creating more time at any cost, they can begin hoping for more comfort and more meaning and more connection. And hospice, it creates that space to focus on what matters most in life while there is still time to experience it.
And sometimes people graduate from hospice, don't
Definitely.
they?
Yeah, definitely. Because on hospice, oftentimes a person would be on their curative treatments. It could include a variety of different medications, medications that are draining. It's been very common to find that when people stop taking those medications, they get kind of a sense of clarity back in their thinking. They get some energy back because it's not being drained by the chemo or the radiation. And so when they're under less stress, when they're able to kind of focus on spending time with the people that they enjoy, doing things that they love, experiencing life again, it's often seen that they get better and can come off of hospice. Hospice is an election, so you can get off of it, and then you can be prescribed back onto it.
Great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And I personally have had clients who were on hospice, and they called me a year later, and they're going on a cruise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's quite incredible.
so don't wait. It's like Melissa said, it's not saying, okay, I give up, this is the end. Take advantage of this wonderful, wonderful program that can really make a huge difference, not only for you, but for your loved ones, especially. So, Melissa, what are the key forms and documents people should have
Yeah, definitely.
in place?
Yeah. So there's a whole library of forms I'm sure you've all heard that you should have in place, right? Your wills and your bank accounts and your birth certificate, and the list goes on and on, right? There's legal documentation, there's personal inventories. I am not a lawyer, I'm not a financial planner, but as an end-of-life professional, I can tell you some of the most important documents are going to be focused on your health care. And so today, there are two specific ones I would strongly encourage everybody here to put in place if you haven't already. The first is called the Advanced Healthcare Directive. I see a lot of nods. Who here has that in place? Oh, very good. When's the last time you spoke to your medical proxy about your choices? Okay. All right. So let's talk about that a little bit. So for those of you that may not be too familiar with what an advanced healthcare directive is, it is a legal document that states who would have the power to speak for you if you were unable to. Let's say you were in an accident and you were unconscious, but you lost the ability to communicate. This person speaking for you is someone you trust, who's aligned to what your values are and knows what your values are. Because in that situation where you were incapacitated, they are going to look at this advanced healthcare directive and have an idea of what matters to you, what kind of comfort measures you want, what quality of life means to you. And you might think they know what you want, but if you've ever been in a situation where you've had to assume what somebody else would want, it is stressful. I mean, I don't know if anybody over even just a Thanksgiving, weekend, someone said, "Can you go get some onions from the market?" And it's like, well, do you need green onions? Do you need shallots? Do you need white onions? Do you need yellow? And it's like, if you aren't a cook, you don't know what onions to get. And so, I use that really simplified analogy to help you understand how important it is to be specific and to talk to your healthcare proxy about your choices. Because having to make the assumption that green onions will do, and if you are making French onion soup, we know that that's not the match, right?
So,
Oh, yeah.
So I was going to ask you, what happens if a person doesn't have these documents in place?
Yeah. If these documents are not in place, your next of kin would be able to make those decisions for you. For some people, that person is their chosen healthcare proxy. But in the cases where it's not, if you don't want that next of kin making those choices for you, I would advise that you identify somebody and have those conversations and have it documented in your advanced healthcare directive. And this example is actually one from Prepare for Your Care, Hospice Low County. There are many advanced healthcare directives available online. This is the one that we use. Their version goes into a lot more detail about end-of-life preferences in addition to medical choices.
So I cut you off. Please accept my apology before you mention the other form.
Yeah. The second form, I would strongly encourage those who are either any adults who are seriously ill, medically frail, regardless of age, and or if you know people who are not likely to survive a sudden decline. Thank you, Vanna. A pulse. Has anyone ever seen a document like this? Hot pink or a yellow? This is, unlike the Advanced Healthcare Directive, this is a medical order. You can get this from your doctor, and this is very important to have displayed in your home. Because if you fall into those categories, an adult who's seriously ill, medically frail, or unlikely to survive a sudden decline, in the event that you were to call emergency services, 911, the EMS would come, and by law, they are there to save your life. And they will do everything they can. If you fall into one of those three categories and you would rather allow for a natural death, unfortunately, if they can't see this, they have to follow their obligation as a medical provider and save your life. And so with this physician-ordered life-sustaining treatment document, medical professionals know exactly what your choices are. It's quick and easy to reference, and it can go with you as you move throughout. If you do move throughout, getting transportation, going to the hospital, getting artificial nutrition, etc.
So, how does having these conversations early make things easier for the family?
So it can make a night and day difference. Has anyone ever known somebody who has planned well and communicated their wishes? Okay. Although the experience, I'm sure, included a lot of grief and as well as some stress, for those of you that saw someone who did it well, do you have someone on the contrast that you know of a story where they did not plan well? And did you see that night and day difference of the conflict, of the stress, of the anguish that maybe their loved ones had because they think this is what mom wanted or dad wanted? So by having these conversations, you can save your loved ones from that burden. Actively being proactive and putting some time into communicating your end of life wishes is a huge gift, not just for yourself, because you know what you want, your desires are going to be in one place, but really for the people who love you and that you love, so that they have the peace of mind that they're following what you wanted. They have the peace of mind that they don't have to do much more than execute these orders for you, and they can grieve, they can connect, they can share in the memories, they can do the things that you want to do instead of be stuck in these really difficult situations.
Melissa, what do families often say afterward about what they wish they had known sooner? Besides the forms, because the forms are very important.
Yeah. I think we often hear, so Hospice SLO County, as I mentioned before, we are a non-medical volunteer hospice and a community grief center. And so what that means is we complement medical hospices. Medical hospices include providing the benefits of medication, of equipment, of various therapies. Medical hospice is provided typically in home versus like in a hospital, but it can be at like a hospice facility. Hospice SLO County, because we are non-medical, we take care of the emotional part, the practical care. We help with creating space for the caregiver who is doing an incredible 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job caring for their loved one. We can provide regular breaks for him or her so that they can recharge their battery and keep doing the thing that they love, which is caring for their person. We offer grief counseling. We offer anticipatory grief counseling. We offer grief counseling after the loss, and that's available. It doesn't matter how long ago the loss happened. You can come and receive that support for free. All of our support is free. And so many times we hear people say, I wish I knew hospice low existed sooner, because it would have made things so much easier. Because if you've ever known a caregiver or you are currently in that position, it feels really lonely sometimes, and it feels really exhausting sometimes. And we have resources that can help alleviate a little bit of that stress so that, again, you can keep doing that position and doing it with love and out of care and because you want to. We have caregiver support groups. There's just so much that we can offer, even ways to talk about death and dying that can feel a little more comfortable, that just normalize the whole process, because right now our society just doesn't do that very much. And surprise, if we're lucky, we're all going to be aging, and all of us are going to face loss. And so we really just want to try and equip our community with tools to help get through that.
Thank you, Melissa. And one last question.
Yeah.
For someone who's never talked about end-of-life wishes, what's a gentle way to start that discussion?
Yeah. You can say, I went to a talk and I heard this great person talk about this organization called Hospice Low County. Did you know it existed? I mean, really, talking about death and dying, it can be really scary, but it doesn't have to be. The more we don't talk about it, the more it feels scary. It's kind of like our taxes.
Yeah. Well, I find sometimes it's the kids who don't want to talk.
Yeah. And if you have situations like that where maybe you'd like to talk about it and you feel like there's some resistance from, your loved ones, you're never going to die, Mom. I don't want to hear it. If you have a chance, say, I love you, and I would never want you to be in a situation where you're hurting. But if we don't talk about it, I can guarantee you it's going to be harder for you. And hopefully those little nuggets over time, because this is not a one and done conversation, can start to kind of break that ice, and you can have those discussions. And Hospice Low County is always available to help give you some pointers on having those talks.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, we are going to hear from Chloe now. Chloe, would you give us a brief introduction? Or you already did your introduction, didn't you? Sorry. So I'm going to go right into it. What are the key documents that everyone should have in place, and why?
So everything Melissa just said is number one, but also trust, wills, and power of attorney. So some of these may be familiar, especially power of attorney that's often thought of for medical, but there's financial power of attorney as well. I am not an estate attorney. Please find a trusted professional that is, but the general gist of it is a trust helps govern assets while you're alive. Wills are focused more on after death. And POAs are a decision-making power that exists when you're alive. So giving someone else the ability to make financial decisions on your behalf. And that's going to be really, really important, especially in situations where mental incapacitation is occurring.
And a lot of people don't realize that powers of attorney expire when the person expires. So your power of attorney is null and void once you've deceased. And that usually comes as quite a surprise to people. So it is important, if you need an attorney referral, to discuss a will or a trust. Let me know. I have some great people that I work with. And it's just very important. And once you get the ball rolling, it's empowering. It's going to make you feel really good. So we don't want you to dread anything.
And one of the things that people often don't consider is that your trust can actually be your beneficiary on some of your financial accounts. So we do that quite often, especially in situations where families have more complicated structures, or they don't want to have to call their financial person and be like, hey, you know, I'm mad at that kid today, so I think I need to replace it with this kid and do that, right? It's all in the trust, and the assets are governed by the way that the trust goes. And so that's part of our main use for trust. The two documents we always gather are trust and power of attorney, because we need those on file for that decision-making process.
That's right. And how often should someone review or update their will or trust?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is, how many of you guys have a trust or a will? Yeah, okay, great. A lot of you. Same comment as Melissa. When was the last time you looked at it, right? If you don't know, that's a great time to review it. The industry standard is every 3 to 5 years, or when there's a big life event, a new grandkid, a new child, a new husband, any of those things, you're married, etc. Those are very important times to sit down and be like, okay, how do I want these assets governed, especially in blended families? This is a big discussion. How do I want those assets governed? How do I distribute those assets? Who gets what? And that's when you want to be reviewing your trust.
You know, for years, I sit down in front of people, and the very first question I will ask them is the property in a trust? And, you know, they'll say, oh, yes, you know, real proud of themselves. Yes, we have a trust. And then I would say, well, when is the last time you updated it? And then they start looking at each other and saying, oh, well, I don't know. When was that? About 20 years ago, you know? And so I mentioned to them, well, it's a good idea to get your trust updated. And so they're like, well, we don't even know how to get a hold of our attorney. You know, I think he died. And so you've heard me, those of you that come often, you've heard me say before, you do not need to go back to your old attorney. I mean, if you want to, by all means. But any attorney can review your trust. So call me so we make sure we send you to a good one, or, you know, to your favorite current one. But you do not have to go back to the person that drew up the trust in the first place.
And there's some attorneys like Stephanie, who's spoken here before, that include that as part of their process. So when you pay for it, you'll get a free 3 to 5 year review.
Yeah. So, yeah, some of us, Stephanie's one of our attorneys that we refer, and that's great that she does that. We love Stephanie. She's got so much energy. She just had a baby, so we're leaving her alone for a little while.
No one reviewed your trust like this week.
Okay. Can you share an example of how good planning has made a difference for a family?
Well, the good planners usually don't really stand out, but I can share an example of how the bad planners function.
That'll work.
Yeah, so there's a couple. So I'll start with my personal story. So my grandmother, very fortunately, again, she had Alzheimer's and dementia, and it was progressive starting at 80 years old till she died at 92. And I'm pretty sure she wouldn't have died unless there's a very weird situation with how she died. So she probably would have kept on going. But you can imagine how expensive that was for her to be in assisted living in varying degrees from the ages of 80 to 92. And if you don't know, talk to Sue. I'm sure she has the answers. But anyways, my grandmother had many the investment assets. She also had a rental property that they were using to fund her care, and it was all in a trust. Her daughter, my dad was the son, and he trusted his sister to take care of his mom. His mom didn't have some protections in place, and so the sister was able to take advantage of her. So she put things in the trust, in the deed of the house, etc., that my grandma never would have wished for, but that she was doing to serve herself. Right. And that was really, really traumatic on the backside for my dad, who, when his mom passed away, was now having to not have time to grieve because he was in a legal fight with his sister about what to do with his mother's assets, right? And so that's the biggest thing, is this is really honoring your wishes. There's another one that was, and again, this is regardless of age, right? Like, we're here obviously talking about what happens a little bit as you age, but I had a client that was in his 60s, came in July, died in September. It was very fast cancer, and no one was prepared. We had fortunately started these conversations about what are we going to do? How are we going to structure things? Where is it going to go? We had the trust on file as a beneficiary, and that made it easier. But there was a little bit of a lack of understanding among the family. So when this was this specific example, but all of the assets were in the husband's name. When someone dies, you have to transition those assets to someone else, and it doesn't happen overnight. That's the biggest thing, is people die, they're like, I need money. And if the assets aren't in your name, it's very hard. It takes a little bit of time to get those assets to you. It's not just like we can get it to you the next day. And so that's one of the biggest things, if you'll need access to funds, is thinking about the time that it will take to do that and what interim measures you can have, right? So one of these is having an account that's exclusively in your name that you can use in case something happens to your significant other or your family member. Same for your kids, right? If you want your kids to be handling your affairs after, or in the event of an unexpected circumstance, they need to have something that they can access, because if they're relying on your assets to manage the process, they may not have them. And so that's going to be the biggest thing, is really thinking about, what are my wishes, right? How do I honor myself? What do I really want? How do I want to set my kids up, my family up, whoever it is, right? And a lot of times too, especially, again, we're not just talking end of life. I mean, these are minor children sometimes. These are younger people that are just getting money potentially for the first time, or assets. What do you want them to have out of your assets, right? You've saved your whole life. You've built this future. If you're bestowing assets upon someone, even if it's a charity or your family, it's because you want them to achieve something with those assets. So getting them on the same page about what you want them to achieve, and making sure that those wishes are honored, is going to be the most important with this planning piece.
Thank you. So what would you say to people who say to you, I don't have enough assets for a trust?
So it's really not about the quantity, it's about the quality, right? So depending on the asset structure, depending on the family structure, etc., a trust is really meant to help govern those decision-making processes and make it much smoother, regardless of what happens, right? So if you don't think you have enough, the best place to start is ask an attorney. The biggest expense is probably going to be in paying for the trust, and so that's something that you definitely want to plan for. But there's not a hard and fast limit on what is too little. It's a conversation that's worth having for anyone, even if you have $2.
Right. And when you're in doubt about who to talk to, call me, and I can help direct you to the appropriate people. So one last question, Chloe. What's one thing that attendees could do this week to take a first step towards getting their estate plans in order?
Yeah, I think the big thing is start talking about it, right? And we know this conversation is hard. So again, you have professionals like Melissa that you can talk to that can help make this conversation easier. And I get that it can be uncomfortable, right? But the way I always like to put it is, you don't wear a seatbelt because you want to get into an accident. You wear it in case you do. This conversation, this is your seatbelt. Right? You're protecting yourselves, you're protecting your assets, you're protecting your families from having to make decisions, from it being a burden on them, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll give you just like a little example. My mom is not a planner. I am. If that is a surprise to anyone, I would be surprised. But we were talking after this whole situation happened with this client. I was like, oh my God, I haven't had the conversation with my family about their assets and what my parents want. I don't even know. I don't even have the slightest clue. And my brother's off in Spain, so I'm probably in charge, just to put it that way. And my mom, I start talking to them, I'm like, we need to have a conversation about this. And my mom is like, Chloe, it's fine, just walk in faith. And I was like, Karen, probate doesn't walk in faith, okay? Like, that's not how we do it. Probate walks in plans. And so really having the plans, right, and having an idea, even if it changes, even if you need to go somewhere else, just giving yourself a point B to have a direction is gonna be the most important thing that you can do. Again, there's a few reasons people avoid it, right? As Melissa was talking about, it can be kind of an uncomfortable conversation. And that's where if you're not sure what to do, talk to people who have the language and the skill set and the emotional availability to help you through that. And then the other reason is because it's either unfamiliar. So this is where the education piece is so important. Like really, we want people to understanding what they're doing. Why do you even have a trust? What is a POA, et cetera? And then one of the bigger issues I actually see a lot of is not consolidating your assets. So take a look at everything you have and make sure you know where that random bank account is and where this is. And especially as people age and sometimes mental incapacitation does occur, having those assets in one place with someone you trust is going to be really, really important. So I'll give you a quick example, and then I'll give you an example of my role. But I had a client come in. The husband was showing early signs of dementia. So they consolidated all the assets. Charles Schwab allows you to trade on your own, which was happening. The husband was going in the Charles Schwab app, trading stocks, not telling his wife and forgetting he did it. So that was even better. And she'd be like, where is this? And no one would have any idea, right? So they came into the office, they sat down, and I was like, okay, if you want to place a trade, totally fine. You know, I trust you. I'll execute for you, no problem. But you'll have to call me. And the husband was like, I don't know if I want to call someone every time I want to place a trade. And he stepped up to go to the bathroom, and the wife looked at me and was like, thank you. We've been so worried because he's been doing this, and I don't know what's happening, and he doesn't even realize that he needs to tell me, right? And so being on the same page about your assets, if you share assets with somebody or you're planning your life with somebody, that is a big one. Again, having that POA, usually people wait till it's too late. Right? You have to be fit to sign a contract mentally if you're going to sign it. That's why having these documents in order ahead of time is so important, because you have to be able to agree and to be fully informed to be able to sign that contract, right? So getting those POAs on file, start the conversation when you're 40. Tell your kids they need to get their POAs on file, right? Like, this is not just for you guys, this is for your families and the people you care about, okay? So that's the biggest thing, is waiting too long, not consolidating, and then they have a bank account here that hasn't been touched in 10 years, and they forgot about this 401k, but that's still their assets, and et cetera, et cetera. So bringing it all together and working with a trusted professional. And I always tell my clients, if you come into my office, if you want to place a trade or get money out, you're going to call me. And I'm going to ask you a question like, are you buying a purple elephant, or like sending money to your overseas lover? And if you say yes to either of those, I'm going to be like, okay, hold on, I got to go through some steps here, right? Because financial exploitation is real. So find a trusted professional that's going to keep you safe, keep your family safe, and help you through the whole process, because this is a very confusing thing and not something everyone needs to do alone.
Thank you so much, Chloe. You know, I love Chloe's energy. I couldn't wait to get her back. This is the second time she's spoken for us, and I always get wonderful feedback. Everyone here is wonderful today. So now we're going to hear from Chris Cucchiara, with our fitness expert from Estate 360, and we thought we would just lighten it up a little bit and
Great.
yeah,
All
hear
right.
what you have to say. What do you have to share with us today?
Well, one of your questions, I think, Nancy, was how does regular exercise help older adults maintain independence? How many of you in here exercise at some level right now? Great. All right, we got a few that we're going to, by the time you're done today, you'll be exercising. But, you know, muscle is the organ of longevity. So you hear a lot about people talking about longevity all the time. And what does that really mean? I mean, some people want to have a long life, but you want to have quality of life. It's really about health span. And so the healthier your muscles are, the longer you're going to live and the more quality of life you're going to have. And, you know, there's so many things you can do for health. But at the top of the pyramid is exercise, especially as we start getting older, because that's where your independence comes from. And there's this fear that most people have, they get older, that they're going to fall and break a hip or something like that. And those things are totally preventative. You know, a lot of doctors will say, well, you know, you're a certain age and these things happen at that age. And if you have a doctor that talks to you like that, fire him, because that's not true. It's never too late to start. And what I like to say, these guys are talking about financial planning and stuff. And as we go through life, we plan financially. But as we start getting older too, I like to say that strength is the currency in which we live our life. So your currency starts to change now. You're investing, but your quality of life is going to be based on the strength that you have in your ability to function day to day.
That's really good, Chris. So, what are some simple movements or routines that most seniors can safely start with?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sometimes it can get overwhelming. So stay off of Google, because you're going to every expert on there has got some kind of thing you can do, and some of it's good. And it's not about working out. A lot of people are intimidated because they think I've got to go to a gym and I've got to work out. And the reason I started my center is the clients that come to us don't want to go to a gym. There's so many things that you can do. But I put together a little printout in here for you guys that you can look at some different exercises that you can do at home. There's so many things you can do at home that doesn't cost you anything, that are safe. And then we live in a great place here on the Central Coast. Take your shoes and socks off, go on the beach, walk in the wet sand. That's going to ground you. You're going to get some detox from the salt air, and just move. Once you're in motion, you stay in motion. And it's just key, because it's easy to sit down, especially if you got a little pain. But the safest thing to do if you've got some body pain is walk. It's very, very safe. So just some simple things like that. There's quite a few exercises I put in this little handout for you that can give you ideas of what you can do at home, like chair sit-ups, wall push-ups, band work, light dumbbell type work, all these things that you can do at home if you don't belong to a fitness center.
So, a lot of people don't realize, Chris, that walking is a bone strengthening exercise.
Significant. Yeah. And if you feel like your confidence is getting better and better and you feel stronger and stronger as you're walking, grab some light dumbbells, little dumbbells that you can purchase at Big Five or something, and walk with those too. That starts to stress the skeletal system a little bit more, so that you have a little more weight bearing when you're walking. But yeah, walking is free, and it's one of the best things we can do. Sitting down, today is the new smoking. It really is. And so it sounds, wow, is it really that dangerous? Yeah, it is, because we've all grown up with a computer now, and a lot of times we're at the desk and we just don't move enough. And just get out and walk.
So, how do you motivate people that feel like it's too late to start?
It's never too late to start. Just like that's a good conversation to have. And I think we've become the society that says, like, over 65, everything just starts to decline, And a lot of people come into the center, sometimes they're 80, 85 years old, and they say, I think it's just too late for me to start, Chris. And I say, no, it's not, because 80 is middle age.
Nowadays.
Okay? So how many here are still middle age? Okay, it's really a mindset. It's never too late. And I've seen people that I've worked with that started working out at 70 years old, and now they're in their 90s, and it was the best decision they ever made at 70, when some people told them it was too late for them to tell them that. And the ones that are usually doing it, they're kids. They're saying, oh no, I'm worried about you, don't do that. And so it's never too late.
That's really good.
Never too late.
You have a picture up on your wall of some 90-year-old guy.
Yeah, there's a guy 92
out.
years old that's still in the was in the Olympics for strength training, and he's still going at it at 92. You look at the guy, you think he's like 65. So it's never too late. There's you can Google it. It's kind of fun. There's some women bodybuilders out there in their 80s that are still competing in bodybuilding, and they're not doing it so much for the looks anymore. Like we were all, when we were younger, working out was all about looking good for the beach, the bar, and the girls, and the guys. Now it's about strength, but it just gives you such a quality of life. And the other thing that most people are afraid of as they age is the brain health, right? I mean, it's the biggest fear that most people have is dementia and Alzheimer's. One of the greatest things you could do for your brain is exercise and move and breathe, simple things that don't cost you anything.
So, what role does balance and strength training play in preventing falls and maintaining confidence?
Everything. Balance is everything, because you don't have to have any fear of breaking a hip if your strength and your balance is strong enough. If you do fall, most people will recover if they're strong enough and their bones are strong enough. See, our skeletal system, people think it gets too late. We don't build bone anymore. Bone is a living tissue. You're going to grow bone every 7 years. So if you're doing the right things for that, your bones are getting stronger and stronger. So if you do fall, and we all do, you're probably going to catch yourself, or you're going to roll better because you're stronger, your balance is better, and you're going to minimize any risk of a severe injury or fracture.
You are so right. I took a significant fall myself about 3 or 4 months ago, and I was afraid to get up because I went flying in someone's driveway, and I landed on my right arm and my right hip. And I was terrified to move. And I slowly got up and I was okay. Thank you, Jesus. And I know it's because I've been working out with Chris once a week for the last several years. Because, left to my own self, it's hard for me to get moving. And lately I'm doing a lot of walking. And what gets me out there is just knowing that if I'm not exercising, my muscles are deteriorating. They deteriorate every day.
Yeah.
And so when you get up and walk or do some exercise, you're turning that process around. You're actually reversing that.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, correct, because a lot of times if you've ever ended up in the hospital and you had surgery, or you're kind of laid up in the hospital or home for weeks on end, your muscle atrophies so fast. Have you ever noticed that? Or if you break your leg and you put a cast on, they take the cast off the leg, that leg is half the size of the other leg. That's how quick your muscle atrophies. So if you're staying in motion and you're exercising, it's good to be strong, because if you do end up in the hospital for a surgery, your recovery time is going to be so much better. I had major back surgery 3 months ago, and the doctor said, you're probably, over the phone, you're not going to be able to do this for such amount of time. Well, in a day, I was right back to doing everything I pretty much did. And I'm not bragging, I'm just saying, because I spent my whole life building the muscle. When I was younger, it was about a different reason, but now it's all about just that. Your muscles, so you have skeletal muscle, you have muscle around your heart, but what most people don't know, you also have smooth muscle that's around the organs of your body. So when your muscle atrophies, that you could see on the outside of your body, so is the muscle around your organs. And that causes a lot of problems with people with different organ health issues. So building your muscle is so important. It's going to give you the greatest benefit, longevity, that you can in anything else you can do.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to ask you one last question before we open it up for the Q&A period. What is one small daily habit that can make a big difference in energy and mobility?
Yeah, I think it all starts with mindset, right? You've got to be able to believe that it's not too late, and starting even with the babyest step, and you build momentum, and eventually you get to a place where you want to get to, because sometimes it's really overwhelming. You're looking at this going, oh my God, just too big. But just start. And the easiest thing to start with, like we've been talking, is just walking, and then look at some of these exercises. And there are some great things that you can do at home. Just pick one a week and build on that, and just start really slow. And once you start feeling better, you'll be more motivated, because what happens is, if you haven't done anything for a long time, it's just gargantuan thing. It's just overwhelming. Oh, I'm too old. It's too late. It never is too late. And the thing is, just start and find somebody to do it with, a spouse, a significant other, a family member, have that kind of community, is always good for the motivation. And it's really not that difficult. And like I say, if you have a doctor that talks to you about your aging, this is what happens, how you should feel when you're that age, really fire them. And if we can find you a doctor that'll share the same philosophy, because we're a society that says we're old at 65, right? You retire at 65. The life insurance tells you, average life expectancy for a female's 82 years old, a male 78 years old. So we start buying into all that. Don't do that. Just remember 80s middle age.
Yeah, some of those doctors need to come to some of our workshops, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah. Well, we're gonna go ahead and open it up for Q&A
Great.
now.
Okay.
And why don't you hand the microphone to Chloe because she had something that she needed to add.
So yeah, sorry, one last thing. Chris is 100% right. This is also one thing that I tell my clients all the time is science and medicine are changing so much. You might be on this ride a lot longer than you think and not have a way off. So that matters for your mobility and your longevity. It matters for your asset planning, right? That we need to be thinking about, okay, what if I live 5 years past when I thought I was going to die? I do have some clients that come in and they're like, I'm out by 81. And I'm like, how are you going to make that happen? They're like, I'm out. I'm like, okay, bye guys.
Yeah.
But
I had a lady
just be
tell me
prepared.
that.
And then one more thing too, I want to mention, Melissa, the Polst is up here and we can pass it around at the end or come walk around. But if anyone hasn't seen a Polst, please come see it. And then one thing that Nancy had asked me was, what can you do today? There's some binders that are outside that have an estate planning organizer that you can look at that has all of the things you need. So please feel free to take a binder, go through that organizer. If you need to work on it with your family, that's a great way to start, is that's already structured in there and it's just like, okay, let's check off the list. So come look at the Polst, go grab a binder, talk to Chris because you're going to need his support on this ride.
Another 50 years.
Okay. Well, I would love to open it up now for questions. And if you have a question for a specific guest, just feel free to say their name. When you ask your question, I'm going to repeat the question before it's answered. Everybody gets one question and no comments, please. We already have our workshop up here. So if you have comments, save them for later, please. That way we can get to as many people as possible. So, and when they ask you the question, if they ask, one of you in particular, but someone else wants to jump in, that's perfectly fine, but just keep the time frame in mind. Okay, so Ted, you have a question. I said no comments, Ted. You are shameless. He said, why are we sitting here for 90 minutes when we should be out walking on the beach? Okay, it's because you love me. That's why, Ted. Okay. Who else has a question? Larry.
Yeah, this question about advanced directive and this Polsts, is that what you call it?
Yes.
My wife was in French hospital with broken hip, and this doctor came and said, you need to sign this pink form. I didn't even know about it. And I said, well, she has an advanced health directive. Because I don't care. She needs to sign this. It was like, you don't sign this, we're not going to deal with you. That was the impression he gave. So my question is, what comes first, the Post or your written advanced healthcare directive?
What comes first, the chicken or the egg? Larry wants to know is there any order to do the Post and the advanced directive?
Larry, great question. There are two different types of documents. The Advanced Healthcare Directive is a legal form, and then the Polsts is a medical form. So the hospital is going to need to see this. Your Advanced Healthcare Directive will have components of the Polsts, if you want medical interventions, if you want CPR done, if you want, artificial nutrition. But it also includes other things about wishes for, maybe your funeral arrangements or how you want to be treated at end of life. So to answer your question, both are necessary, and the hospital will prioritize this one.
Even though they have a copy of the advanced directive.
Correct.
It says, I don't want to be a vegetable.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Thank you.
Linda.
We're in Pismo East, just right.
She's asking where Regenesis 360
Yeah.
is located.
We're right down the street on James Way, 2 James Way, all the way at the end in the Pismo Beach Medical Center. Yeah, yeah, right upstairs next to the urgent care. So we're trying to help people stop at our place first before they go to the urgent care.
It's right next door, so whenever I go to Chris's, I always hold my breath when I'm walking past the urgent care, because sometimes people are outside. Okay, Denise.
Yeah, Chris, I
Yes.
just wanted to know, what is your opinion on, there's been a lot of hype about protein. and
Great.
that You need to eat protein at every meal as you get older.
Yes.
And there's a lot of, can you speak a little bit to that?
Yes, that's a great
So-
question.
So Denise is asking, how important is it to have enough protein in your diet?
Yeah. It's number 2 on the pyramid. When I talked about exercise being at the top, protein significant. We are a protein deficient society anyway, and as we age, the protein becomes more and more important. And so the average rule of thumb, if you're moving and you're pretty active, you want to have 3/4 of a gram to a gram of protein per optimal pound of body weight. So let's say your optimal body weight is 120. You should have at least 80 grams of protein, and then split that up 3 times a day. And the key thing is timing of protein too. You know how many people say, I don't like to eat breakfast? It's actually the most important meal of the day. So you should book in your day with your largest amount of protein for breakfast and dinner, and the middle for lunch. And whatever type of protein, animal protein is one of the best because it has the leucine in it, 6 grams of leucine, which is really important. But protein shakes, protein for aging is critical.
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
question.
And a lot of us came from the 60s and 70s when everybody was becoming vegetarian. Well, not everybody, but some people were becoming vegetarians. There was this huge emphasis on vegetables. And we would start ordering veggie omelets or veggie burritos and feeling so cool. And even today I see people doing that. My husband is one of them. I have to force protein on him sometimes, but he feels like a little proud when he does just veggies. So the belief today is been turned upside down. Vegetables are still important, of course, but to think that you're doing something good by eliminating the protein. Now, if you're a vegetarian, I apologize. I'm speaking to everyone out here who isn't. But if you're eliminating the protein, you're seriously shortchanging yourself.
Yeah. And for the vegetarian and vegans, they do become a little more complex, but we do have ways to help them, support the protein. But again, when you're thinking of protein, red meat, fish, chicken, and eggs are the best because they all have high levels of amino acid leucine, which is really important. So when you're looking for those kinds of things, look at those types of proteins. And then there's various powders out there too. But if you can get the food first, start with the food. And if that gets to be tough for you, I'd rather you get something in you. If breakfast is hard for you to do, have a protein shake.
So we have time for one more question, and then all of our speakers have agreed to stay after the workshop is over. So please don't hesitate to come up. They also have handouts for you. And so we're going to take this one last question, and then we'll keep moving.
Oh, the formula, yeah. 3/4 of a gram.
She's asking that you repeat the formula that you mentioned with the
3/4 of a gram to a gram of protein per optimal pound of body weight. So that means if you're on a weight loss program and you're not at your optimal weight yet, you're not going to gauge it on what weight you don't want to be. You want to gauge it on the weight that you want to get to. So that way, if you're on a weight loss program, you're taking the protein in to where you're getting to your goal weight. Because obviously, if you're on a weight loss program, your calories are a little restricted. So but the protein being the most important, get your calories from the protein. And like Nancy said, yeah, you don't get rid of vegetables. Vegetables are still good, but eat your protein first and then everything else afterwards.
Oh, that's good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, we still have a few more things coming up, but I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for taking your time to come here today. I'd like to give a hand for all of our experts who donated their valuable time to share their insights with you today. And my hope is that you feel more confident about how to give the perfect gift this holiday season. I encourage you to visit with the speakers before you leave. And also the sponsors have some materials in the back right corner of the room where Sam is standing, but he's going to move his camera, so don't hesitate to go back there. I'd like to remind you all that all of my Seacoast senior services are completely free, but my day job is as a realtor. So if you are even thinking about, selling your home, I'd really appreciate if you give me a call and potentially allow me to represent you. That way I get paid once in a while, which is, my husband really likes that. Nope, not right now. So we are going to do our raffle now. So Carol, I would like to thank Carol Roberts. She's one of you, and she volunteered to greet today, which we really appreciate so much. Thank you, Carol. Okay, we have a raffle. Let me put that there for a sec. The first thing we're going to raffle off is something that Carol actually donated today. And it's this awesome cooler. And she not only donated the cooler, but she included a bottle of wine and an ice pack. So this is a very cool gift. Does everybody have a raffle ticket? You don't get one?
Mine, can you get a ticket?
Okay. And then after we raffle that, we have a Christmas jigsaw puzzle. If anybody likes to do jigsaw puzzles, they also make a great Christmas gift. Are we all set?
I gotta say one thing about Nancy too. She is the best. I had a client that was struggling to get her parents' house cleaned out and listed. And I think Nancy did it in 5 months, and she'd been working on it for 2 years. Because Nancy has a team of everyone you need. So really, like, there is no one else I send those clients to because she does such an incredible job. So,
well, if I'd known you were going to say that.
I could say it a little louder, but it's really, like, she's a very special type of realtor, and she really makes the process move. And a lot of people, the biggest thing is they don't want to be a burden on their kids. And that's what it usually ends up becoming, because 40 years of life, you get a lot of stuff. So Nancy is like, please talk to her. She is a savior.
Thank you, Chloe. Okay, so the winner of this beautiful cooler is 1751347. Oh, Kathy. You're going to have to give that wine to somebody else. You can't give it back to me this time. Kathy always wins the wine, and she doesn't want wine. She's so sweet. She finally started just giving them back. Okay, let's see. All right. Sue Gibson, one of our sponsors. I don't know if Sue is still here. Oh, she had to leave, but she donated 2 raffle gifts. You know what? I'm going to give them out. Oh, I better do separately, huh? That's probably what she expected me to do. Okay, 1 raffle gift from Sue goes to 1751351. Oh, Linda. Okay, let's see. I don't bring that up to Linda. I still need you. And the second second gift from Sue goes to 1751372. 372. Going. You have to be here to win. 1751370. That must have been her husband. One 1751348. This is hilarious. Did you do this right, Carol? I did. Oh, it's Mike. Oh, that's fun. Okay. So this will go to Mike. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. There you go. All right. Now we have the jigsaw puzzle. And this one goes to 1751376. Oh, it goes to Louie. Louie. There you go. Thank you so much. All right. So I want to remind you to please fill out your feedback form. Carol will be sitting at the front desk, and when you're done, you can turn it into her, and she will punch your learning card for you. If it starts getting too backed up over there, I'm happy to initial it for you. That'll work too. I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday season. And just thank you to all of you for being such a great support.